The most dangerous moment in your multi-million-dollar utility billing system replacement isn't the go-live weekend. It's right now. And the catastrophic failure isn't a server crashing, it's you. 18 months from now, in a board meeting, trying to explain why the project is 6 months late and millions of dollars over budget, all because of one sentence in a contract that everyone on your team approved. That's the moment that defines careers, and it's completely avoidable. Some experts and analysts estimate that over 70% of all CIS implementations, customer information systems, end in failure, either because of massive cost and timeline overruns or because they never get off the ground. 70%. That's not a risk. That's the default outcome. For the next 25 minutes or so, I'm not going to give you a checklist. I'm going to tell you the real world stories of how that 70% failure rate happens, starting with that one dangerous sentence in the contract. And I'll give you the exact playbook to make sure you land in the other 30%. Our first story is about data. It involves a well-run large utility, we'll call it utility A, and a single innocent-looking sentence buried in their statement of work with the software vendor. And this is a multimodal utility. They do electric, water, sewer, fiber. It said, data cleansing is the client's responsibility. Now, everyone on the project team on both sides nodded when they said that. It sounds standard. It sounds fair. It's your data. But that one sentence ended up costing them an 8-figure change order and a 9-month delay, 18 months after the contract was signed. Here's how. For the first year, everything looks green on the status reports. The team is hitting milestones for design and configuration. Then they hit the data conversion cycles. The vendor runs their automated scripts to pull 25 years of data from the old legacy system, and it's a disaster. First of all, because you're pulling 25 years of data. So thousands upon thousands of records get kicked out. Invalid service addresses from before the 911 system changed. Invalid service addresses. Mismatched customer classes that were handled by manual workarounds, obsolete rate codes that don't map to anything in the new modern system. The vendor correctly points to the contract. This is a data quality issue, they say. The data needs to be cleansed before we can load it. It's the client's responsibility. And suddenly the project grinds to a halt. The utilities business experts, the ones who know what the data is supposed to look like, are completely swamped by their day jobs. They don't have the tools, the time, or the training to manually fix 20 plus years of legacy data, issues for hundreds of thousands of customers. Now, the steering committee meetings become a battlefield. The utility says, we thought you were handling the data. The vendor says, we're handling the conversion of the data you provide, not the cleansing. Both are right. The contract was the problem. It was too vague because it said the client will handle data migration. That's it. And the result, a massive change order. The vendor had to bring in a specialized data cleansing team. It cost a fortune and delayed the project by nearly a year while they did the work that should have been planned from the start. So the CIO had to go to the board and explain why the project was late and over budget before a single customer was live on the new system. So the trust, both in the project and in the CIO's leadership, was deeply damaged. So what's the moral of that story? What was the real mistake? Because these things happen. The contract needed to be brutally specific about data. It needed to define what cleansed actually meant. It needed a formal, funded data quality workstream from day one, or even before day one. This is a big part of phase 0 as we talk about. It needed dedicated business resources, and it needed to specify at least 3 mock conversions, cycles to identify these issues early. And most importantly, it needed to establish a data governance council, a group of business leaders who could make fast, binding decisions about how to handle historical data conflicts. That single sentence, data cleansing is the client's responsibility, should have been a 10-page appendix in the SOW. And that's how you avoid becoming utility A. If you want to learn more about data conversion, click on this video. The second story is about what happens when the technical go-live is a success, but the customer experience is a disaster. This is not hypothetical. A few years ago, a major Pacific Northwest utility went live with their new CIS and advanced meters. Now, from a technical perspective, the launch was fine, but from the customer standpoint, it was chaos. A city council audit later found that the new system resulted in customers receiving a huge number of unexpectedly high bills. Why? Because of issues with estimated and delayed billing. The new system was technically working, but the transition process was so rocky that the real meter reads weren't getting through in time. So the system did what it was programmed to do. It estimated. And when the actual reads finally caught up, customers were hit with massive, confusing catch-up bills. And imagine that phone call, the anger, the damage to public trust that had been built over decades. The project team had been so focused on the technical cutover, on keeping the servers online, that they missed the real goal, sending accurate, timely, and understandable bills to customers. So where did this failure start? Once again, in the contract. In the SOW, the Statement of Work's definition of success was a technical one. Did the system go live? Check. Was the data migrated? Check. It lacked the critical business-focused success criteria. The contract needed to define success in terms of business outcomes. For example, a clause stating that the first 6 months post-go live, the percentage of estimated bills shall not exceed 5% of the total bills generated. Or billing accuracy as measured by a full parallel validation against the legacy system must achieve 99.95% before cutover. It also needed a detailed customer impact plan. How will you handle the guaranteed spike in call center volume? What training and tools will the agents have? How will you proactively communicate with customers about the changes? This can't be an afterthought. It has to be a contractual obligation with a dedicated budget and resources. You have to plan and fund the defense of your customers' trust. Story 3 and the final story isn't about a failure from the past, but about a massive risk for the future that is being written into contracts today. Artificial intelligence and data sovereignty. You are selecting a system that you will likely be running for the next 15 to 20 years, or forever if the SaaS vendor does great. The decisions you make in the contract today will determine whether you can actually leverage AI in 5 years, or if you'll be hamstrung by data policies baked into your vendor agreement. Every CIO I talk to wants to use AI to improve customer experience and drive efficiency. But for a utility, especially a public one, you cannot risk your customers' data. Here's the trap. Many cloud software contracts now include clauses that grant the vendor the right to use anonymized client data to train their global AI models. Sounds harmless, but anonymized is a very tricky word. Is your customer's energy usage pattern truly anonymous? In the hands of a data scientist, probably not. If you sign that standard clause today, in 5 years when you want to build your own AI tools to predict outages or help customers save energy, you may find that your most valuable data asset, your customer's usage data, has been feeding your vendor's product, not your own. You've been improving their competitive advantage, not your own operational efficiency. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you have an understanding that you're not going to be left out or cut out of your own data. And this has to be addressed during contracting. This has to be addressed during phase 0. You have to have a data governance plan. You have to have a data sovereignty strategy. It requires asking 4 simple, non-technical questions and getting the answers in writing as a formal appendix. First, data sovereignty. Where physically will my customer data reside? Which country? Which cloud region? Who has access to it? Second, AI model training. What's your policy on using our utilities data to train your large language models? The answer must be a hard no unless it's within your own private secure tenant for your own exclusive benefit. Third, data portability. How can we get our data out of the system in a non-proprietary format if we choose to leave? What's the cost and process? Now, if you're going through an ERP or utility billing implementation, you know how hard it's going to be to get your data out of the legacy system and you own it. That's compounded when it's hosted somewhere else, when it's in someone else's cloud. And the fourth one is auditability. How can we audit the AI's recommendations? If an AI-assisted agent gives the customer the wrong information, what is the immutable log that shows us what happened and why? Getting these answers in writing in the contract isn't about slowing down innovation. It's about protecting your future options and ensuring you, not your vendor, control your destiny. These stories aren't outliers. They're the predictable outcomes of a contracting process that prioritizes speed and price over clarity and accountability. They are why a lot of these projects fail. So if you're a CIO, a COO, a CEO, or a program leader in this exact position, here's the one question I would be asking myself right now. Do I have a truly independent, expert view on my program's real risks? Do I have someone whose only job is to protect the interests of the utility, to ask these hard questions before the contract's signed and the concrete is poured? And this is precisely why we created a very specific high-impact engagement. We call it the 2-week CIS contracting phase risk review. So how do you protect yourself from these risks? You need to undertake an impact assessment, a pre-contract or contracting phase risk review, which shouldn't take 2 or 3 months or consume lots of money. It should be a rapid, focused sprint designed for executives. In 2 weeks, You should have a clear-eyed risk register, a contract gap analysis against the stories we've talked about today, and a prioritized list of specific actionable recommendations to strengthen your SOW and protect your program. It's making sure you don't become another story. This will ensure that your CIS modernization becomes a defining success for your career and for your utility. I want you to reach out personally if you want more information. Let's have a confidential conversation. Thank you for your time. And if you want to learn more about contract negotiation, click on this video. Thank you.